What if the man everyone feared offered you $5 million for one Valentine's Day not to own you, but to find out why your eyes looked more broken than his? This is his $5 million Valentine, a mafia romance about power grief, and the dangerous moment a woman realizes the life she planned may be the cage she never chose. Picture Savannah at night, rain sliding down black car windows, red roses glowing behind restaurant glass, a bride-to-be sitting alone in a private club while her fiancé laughs with another woman across the room. Then the city's most feared man notices her silence. If you stay until the end, this story will show you the difference between love that controls you and love that hands you the key. So don't look away. Like the video comment where you're watching from and step into the night. The night did not release Harper Lane when she stepped out of the Velvet Room. It followed her home through the wet streets of Savannah, clinging to the windows of Bennett Shaw's silver Aston Martin, slipping beneath her skin, with the smell of rain whiskey and another woman's perfume. Bennett drove too fast. He always did when he felt embarrassed. The city blurred past them in streaks of red and gold. Restaurants glowed with candlelight. Couples moved under umbrellas laughing as if Valentine's week had been invented just for people who knew exactly where they belonged. Harper sat in the passenger seat with both hands folded over the small silver star pendant at her throat. Her bachelorette sash was crumpled in her lap. The glitter on it caught the passing streetlights and flashed like tiny mocking sparks. Bennett said nothing for 6 blocks. That was his favorite kind of punishment. Silence wrapped in leather seats and expensive cologne. Harper looked at his collar. The lipstick was still there. A deep wine red smudged near the crisp white line of his shirt. She heard herself speak before she could swallow the words. You had lipstick on you. Bennett did not look at her. It was a crowded club. She was touching your neck. She was drunk. You were laughing. God, Harper. He exhaled, sharp and tired, as if she had dragged him out of a peaceful evening instead of her own humiliation. Do we really have to do this tonight? The tires hissed over wet pavement. Harper turned toward the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark glass pale face, careful mouth, soft brown eyes that looked older than 26. She had chosen a blue dress because Riley told her it made her look alive. But under the streetlights she looked like a ghost dressed for someone else's celebration. It was my bachelorette party, she said. Bennett laughed once. Exactly. A party. People drink, people dance, people act stupid. You used to be more fun before you started working at that shelter. She closed her eyes. Willow House. He always said it that way, like the place smelled bad. Like helping women who had nowhere else to go was a hobby she should outgrow before marriage. I was sitting alone. You always do that, Bennett said. You pull away, then act wounded when people stop chasing you. The words landed in a familiar place. He had carved that place over 4 years patiently with a charming smile and a surgeon's hand. Harper swallowed. Declan Rourke noticed. That got him. Bennett's knuckles tightened around the wheel. Don't say his name like that. Like what? Like he did something noble. He made those men leave me alone. He made a scene because he enjoys making men feel small. Harper looked at him. And what do you enjoy? The car slowed at a red light. Bennett finally turned his head. His blue eyes were beautiful. Cold, but beautiful. That had fooled her once. I enjoy not watching my fiancé entertain a criminal in public. Harper's laugh came out soft and strange. Entertain him. He spoke to me for 3 minutes. He offered you money. She looked down at her purse. Inside was the black card Declan had placed on the table. Heavy paper. White lettering. No title, no decoration. Just his name and a number. $5 million. 1 day. Dinner. Conversation. No conditions she did not agree to. You can leave whenever you want. Bennett looked at the purse too. For a moment, she saw something move across his face. Not jealousy. Not anger. Interest. It chilled her more than the rain. When they reached her apartment building, Bennett pulled against the curb but kept the engine running. He leaned across the console and kissed her cheek. His lips were warm, his breath sour with bourbon. "Get some sleep," he said. "Big week ahead." Harper did not move, that's all. His hand settled on the back of her neck. Not hard. Just enough to guide her face toward him. "Don't make tonight into a tragedy. You're very good at that." She stared at him. The old Harper would have apologized. She could almost feel the words rising in her throat, trained and ready. "I'm sorry. I'm tired. I overreacted." But the memory of Declan Rourke's voice cut through them. "No, she isn't. That's why I'm asking her." Harper opened the car door. "Good night, Bennett." His fingers slipped from her neck. For 1 second, his expression hardened. Then he smiled. "Good night, sweetheart." She walked into her building without looking back. Only when the elevator doors closed did she let herself breathe. Her apartment was exactly as she had left it. Too clean, too white, too full of wedding things that looked like they belonged to a woman in a magazine. Cream envelopes stacked beside the sink. A seating chart spread across the dining table. A silk robe embroidered with Mrs. Bennett Shaw hanging on the bedroom door. A wedding dress in a garment bag by the window, glowing softly in the dark like a body waiting to be claimed. Harper dropped her purse on the counter. The black card slid out. It landed face up beneath the kitchen light. Declan Rourke. She stared at it for a long time. Then she took off her heels, peeled the sash from her lap, and folded it with the same care someone might use for a flag after a funeral. In the bathroom mirror, her makeup had begun to break apart. Mascara had gathered beneath her eyes. Foundation had worn thin near the pale patches along her collarbone. Her vitiligo had shone through in soft, uneven shapes like moonlight under skin. Her mother had sent 3 tubes of full-coverage makeup last week. "For the photos, sweetheart. You know how people can be." Harper touched the pale mark at her wrist. Her father had once kissed that same place when she was 12 and crying after a girl at school called her spotted. "Some stars show up different," he had told her. "Doesn't make them less part of the sky." She had believed him then. She wanted to believe him now. Her phone lit up on the counter. Marianne Lane. Harper almost let it ring out, but habit answered for her. "Hi, Mom. There you are. I've been texting you. I was at the party. I know. Riley posted something, but you looked tired in the picture. Are you sleeping enough?" Harper glanced at herself in the mirror. "I'm fine. Fine is not radiant. Brides should be radiant." Harper said nothing. Marianne kept going. "Your final fitting is at 11. Don't wear a bra that leaves marks. And please remember the makeup artist is coming by in the afternoon to test coverage." "Coverage," Harper repeated. "For the ceremony photos, we discussed this. We discussed you wanting it." Her mother's silence was immediate. Controlled. Dangerous in its own quiet way. "Harper, Elaine Lane," Marianne said softly. "This is not the week to become difficult." Harper gripped the sink. There it was. Difficult. The word women received when they stopped folding themselves small enough to fit into other people's comfort. "I'm tired," Harper said. "Then rest. And don't let Riley put wild ideas in your head. Bennett's family has been very generous. This wedding matters." Harper looked at the black card through the bathroom doorway. "What if I don't want it?" The silence this time was longer. The wedding. Harper could hear her mother breathing. "Sweetheart," Marianne said, voice lowering into that careful tone she used when Harper was about to embarrass her. "Every woman gets nervous. Your father and I had doubts too." "No, you didn't." "Excuse me. Dad didn't look at you like Bennett looks at me." Marianne's voice sharpened. "Your father is gone. It is very easy to turn dead men into saints." Harper flinched. Her mother softened at once, but not enough. "I only mean that marriage is not a fairy tale. Bennett is stable. He comes from a respected family. He can give you a life without struggle." Harper looked around at the perfect apartment, the perfect invitations, the perfect dress, and felt the walls moving closer. "I have to go." 11 o'clock, Marianne said. "Please don't be late." The call ended. Harper stood in the bathroom until the motion sensor light switched off and left her in the dark. The next morning, Savannah woke under a gray sky. Rainwater clung to wrought iron balconies. Delivery trucks splashed along narrow streets. Somewhere below Harper's window, a man whistled while setting buckets of red roses outside a flower shop. The world looked gentle in daylight, but Harper had learned that daylight was not the same as truth. She dressed for the fitting in a beige sweater and dark slacks. Marianne approved of beige. It never asked for attention. Before leaving, Harper opened her purse to grab her keys. Declan's card waited inside. She should have thrown it away. Instead, she slipped it into the inner pocket where Bennett would not see it if he came by. The bridal boutique smelled like champagne perfume and fresh pins. Marianne was already there when Harper arrived, standing near the platform with a latte in one hand and a list in the other. "You're pale," Marianne said. "Good morning. You need blush." Harper stepped into the fitting room before she could answer. Two attendants helped her into the dress. Layers of ivory satin slid over her body. Lace climbed her arms. Tiny buttons ran down her spine. When she stepped onto the platform, the mirror gave her back a woman she barely recognized. The dress was beautiful. That was the cruel part. It was beautiful in the way a locked room could be beautiful if the windows were tall enough. Marianne's eyes filled. "Oh, Harper." The attendant smiled. Harper stared at her reflection. The neckline had been altered higher than she remembered. She touched it. Marianne noticed. "I asked them to raise it slightly. It photographs better." Harper knew what she meant. The pale marks near her collarbone would be hidden. The seamstress knelt at Harper's feet and pinned the hem. Marianne stepped close behind her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "You are going to have a wonderful life." Harper whispered, "How do you know?" "Because I made sure of it." The words were meant to comfort. They did the opposite. Her phone buzzed on the small velvet chair beside the platform. Bennett. Marianne glanced down and smiled. "Answer him." Harper picked up. "Hey." Bennett's voice came through bright and easy. "How's the dress?" "Fine. Just fine. My mother says it cost more than some cars." Harper looked at herself. "Then I hope the car is happy." Bennett paused. "Are we still doing this?" The boutique seemed to quiet around her. Harper looked into the mirror. Marianne was watching closely. Doing what? This attitude. Her grip tightened around the phone. "I asked you about last night. You dismissed me. I was drunk. You still made choices. And now you're punishing me." Harper heard the edge beneath his smooth voice. Then he said quieter, "Did you keep his card?" Her blood cooled. Marianne's brows lifted. Harper stepped off the platform and moved toward the back of the boutique, dragging satin behind her. "That's none of your business." Bennett laughed softly. "Everything you do this week is my business." She looked through the window at people passing with umbrellas, free to turn left or right or change their minds in the middle of the street. "Why do you care?" "Because Declan Rourke does not give women $5 million because he respects them. And you do." The line went quiet. When Bennett spoke again, his voice was lower. "Be careful, Harper. You're not built for men like him." She ended the call. For a few seconds, she just stood there in the back of the boutique, breathing inside a dress she had not chosen the way she thought she had. Marianne appeared behind her. What did he say? Nothing. "Harper." She turned. "He wants to know if I kept Declan's card." Marianne's expression changed. Not shock. Calculation. "What card?" Harper laughed once because, of course, that was the part her mother heard. "He offered me money." "For what?" "One day." Marianne stared. "With him?" "He said dinner and conversation. That man is a criminal. So, is lying to your fiancée, humiliating her in public and grabbing her hard enough to remind her she belongs to you. But Bennett does it in nicer shoes so nobody panics." Marianne's face went white. "You are emotional." "I'm awake." The words came out before Harper could stop them. The seamstress stood frozen with pins in her mouth. The attendants looked anywhere but at them. Marianne lowered her voice. "Take off the dress." Harper did. By noon, she was back at Willow House. She should not have gone to work. She had taken the week off for wedding appointments, family brunches, floral approvals, and 1,000 tiny rituals that made her feel less like a bride and more like an item being prepared for delivery. But Willow House was the one place where no one cared if she looked radiant. The building sat on a quiet street shaded by old trees. It was a former boarding house with blue shutters, a wraparound porch, and a security system Declan Rourke had quietly paid for through a foundation no one ever mentioned, unless they had to. Harper had learned that by accident 6 months ago while reviewing donation records. Declan's name had been buried under layers of legal structures, but it was there. She had asked the director about it. He gives, the woman said. He never visits. He never asks for praise. We take the money and help women stay alive. At the time, Harper had filed the fact away as one more contradiction in a world already full of them. Inside Willow House, a toddler was sleeping on a couch beneath a yellow blanket. A volunteer was fixing the coffee machine. Somewhere upstairs, a woman was crying, while another woman murmured, "You're safe. You're safe. You're safe." Harper set down her bag and tried to step into the version of herself who knew what to do. That version lasted 12 minutes. Then Maya came in. Maya was 23 with a bruise fading near her cheekbone and a little boy named Jonah who loved crackers and fire trucks. She sat across from Harper in the small counseling room, twisting a tissue in her hands. "He sent flowers," Maya said. Harper kept her voice gentle. "To the shelter. To my sister's apartment. He knows I talked to her. Did he threaten her?" "No. That's the thing." Maya looked ashamed. "The card said he missed me. That Jonah needs his dad. That he's sorry." Harper nodded. "How did that make you feel?" Maya pressed the tissue to her mouth. "Like maybe I'm the cruel one." There it was, the hook beneath the apology. Harper leaned forward. "Love should not make you feel guilty for surviving it." Maya looked at her eyes wet. "Then why do I miss him?" Harper had answered that question for other women before. She knew the language. Trauma bonds, cycles of abuse, control patterns, isolation, financial dependence, false remorse. But today, all those clean terms dissolved into Bennett's voice. "You're making this bigger than it is. You're not built for men like him. Everything you do this week is my business." Harper glanced at her own bare wrist where Bennett's fingers had rested last night. He had not bruised her. That had always been part of the confusion. Bennett rarely did anything obvious enough to name. Maya whispered, "You ever loved somebody who made you feel small?" Harper's professional smile failed. "Yes," she said before she could stop herself. Maya blinked. Harper sat back, heart-thudding. She should not have said that. Counselors were supposed to be steady ground, not cracked glass. But Maya did not look disappointed. She looked relieved. "How did you leave?" Maya asked. Harper touched the star pendant at her throat. "I haven't yet." The room held that truth. Maya looked down at Harper's engagement ring. "Then you still have time." The words entered Harper quietly like a key sliding into a lock. That evening, Bennett came to her apartment without warning. He had showered, changed, erased the club from his skin. He wore a navy suit and carried 2 coffees from the place Harper liked, which meant he wanted something. He kissed her cheek before she could step back. "I hate when we fight," he said. Harper stayed near the door. "We weren't fighting. I was asking questions you didn't want to answer." He smiled. "See that? That tone." She took a slow breath. "Bennett." He held out the coffee. "Peace offering." She did not take it. His smile thinned. "I talked to my father," he said, "about Rourke." Harper's stomach tightened. "Why?" "Because a man like that doesn't circle a woman like you by accident. A woman like me. You know what I mean." "I don't think I do." Bennett set both coffees on the counter. His gaze slid toward her purse. "Where's the card?" Harper folded her arms. "Why do you care so much?" "Because $5 million is not pocket change, Harper. It could help with the Charleston property. My father's deal is taking longer than expected." She stared at him. There it was again. Not jealousy, interest. "You want me to take it?" He rubbed a hand over his jaw. "I'm saying maybe we shouldn't be stupid. Last night you said I wasn't for sale. You aren't." He stepped closer, lowering his voice into something reasonable and ugly. "But if he's willing to hand over that kind of money for a dinner, why not let the man make a fool of himself?" Harper could hear the refrigerator humming. Outside, rain began tapping softly against the windows. "You would let me spend Valentine's Day with him for money." Bennett's eyes sharpened. "Don't twist this." "I'm not twisting anything, I'm listening." He picked up one of the coffees and took a drink as if this conversation bored him. Harper marriage is partnership. Sometimes partnership means making practical choices. Would you do it? What? If a woman offered you $5 million to spend Valentine's Day with her? He smiled. Depends on the woman. The joke landed dead. Harper removed the black card from her purse and placed it on the counter. Bennett looked at it like a starving man trying to look polite in front of food. Harper watched him. The final thread between them did not snap loudly. It simply let go. He reached for the card. She covered it with her hand. Number. His eyes flicked to hers. "What? You don't get to touch it." His expression changed so quickly she almost stepped back. "Almost." "Careful," he said. Harper's voice came out low. "That's the second time today a man told me to be careful. Maybe you should listen." She picked up the card and slipped it into her pocket. Bennett stared at her breathing through his nose. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen and immediately changed his face. The charming one returned. "Mother," he said warmly into the phone. "Yes, we're fine. Harper's just tired." Harper stood 3 feet away while he lied about her in a voice everyone trusted. That was when she understood something that made her colder than fear. Bennett did not need to lock doors. He had taught everyone around her to believe him when he said she was overreacting. After he left, Harper did not move for a long time. The apartment was dim now. Wedding invitations gleamed on the table. The dress hung by the window. Her phone lay beside the sink. She took Declan's card from her pocket. Her thumb hovered over the number. She thought of Savannah Rain on a black umbrella, a white rose on a grave. Declan's face when he looked at her across the club as if he had recognized pain by its posture. She dialed. He answered on the second ring. Miss Lane. The sound of his voice moved through her like a match struck in a dark room. "You knew I would call." Number. "But you hoped." "Yes." No apology. No performance. Just the truth, quiet and dangerous. Harper walked to the window. The city lights shimmered through the rain. "I have rules." "Name them." "No hotel room." "Agreed." "No sex." "Agreed." "I keep my phone." "Of course." "I meet you somewhere public first." "Yes." "If I ask to leave, I leave. Immediately." Her fingers tightened around the phone. "You don't touch me unless I say you can." There was a pause. Not offended, not amused. Respectful. "Harper," he said, and it was the first time he used her first name. "I don't want a prisoner. I've known too many." She closed her eyes. That answer was not soft. It was worse. It sounded like a man speaking from a room full of ghosts. And at the end of the day she asked, "The money is yours. The choice is yours. So is the door." She looked at the wedding dress, at the raised neckline, at the life waiting to button itself over her skin. "Tomorrow," she said. "Valentine's Day." "Yes." "I'll send a car." "No," Harper said. Silence. Then Declan said no. The corner of her mouth lifted despite everything. Men like Bennett hated that word. Declan sounded almost pleased by it. "I'll meet you at Forsyth Park. Near the fountain, 10 in the morning." "Good. You're not angry. If you were easy to command, I wouldn't have asked." Her breath caught. Outside, thunder rolled low over Savannah. "Declan." "Yes." "Why me?" On the other end of the line, something shifted. A chair creaked. A glass touched wood. Then his voice came back quieter. "Because last night, every person in that room was pretending to be alive." Harper pressed her palm to the cold window. "And me. You looked like you were deciding whether to disappear." The words found the place she kept hidden even from herself. She did not answer. Declan did not fill the silence. At last, Harper whispered, 10 o'clock. "I'll be there." The call ended. Harper stood in the glow of the city phone in one hand, black card in the other. Behind her, the wedding dress waited. In front of her, Savannah shone wet and restless beneath the storm. For the first time in years, Harper Lane felt the shape of a door in the dark, and when morning came, she walked toward the fountain with the key still trembling in her hand. Harper reached Forsyth Park 10 minutes early because fear had a way of making her punctual. The morning was silver with rain, not a hard rain, just a soft savanna drizzle that clung to the live oaks and made the Spanish moss look like it was weeping. Couples moved along the paths beneath shared umbrellas. A man sold red roses from a cart near the fountain. A little girl in a pink coat chased pigeons while her parents laughed behind her. Harper stood near the fountain with her hands tucked inside the pockets of her cream coat, trying not to look like a woman who had agreed to spend Valentine's Day with the most dangerous man in Georgia. Her phone buzzed twice. One message from Riley. "Are you alive?" Another from Bennett. "We need to talk before you do something stupid." Harper turned the phone face down in her palm. She had not slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Bennett's hand reaching for Declan's card. Not with horror. Not with jealousy. With hunger. Then, just beyond the fountain, a black Cadillac rolled to the curb. People noticed it before she did. The car was too clean for the weather, too dark for the morning, too expensive to belong to anyone harmless. The rear door opened, and Declan Rourke stepped out wearing a charcoal overcoat, black gloves, and the kind of calm that made the world lower its voice. Gage Sullivan emerged from the passenger side. Milo Reyes stepped out behind him, scanning the park with a bored expression that fooled no one. Declan saw Harper. Everything around her seemed to dim. He did not smile. He did not hurry. He walked toward her like time had already agreed to wait for him. Harper lifted her chin. "You're early," he said. "So are you. I was raised to respect a woman's time. That's convenient for a man who bought 24 hours of mine." Gage looked away, his mouth twitching. Declan accepted the hit without flinching. "I didn't buy it. I made an offer. You accepted with terms. That sounds like something a lawyer would say. I almost became one." Harper searched his face, wondering if he was joking. He held out a paper cup. She looked at it. "No roses. You looked like someone who needed coffee more than roses." Against her will, a smile touched her mouth. "That's disturbingly observant. I've been called worse." She took the cup. It was warm against her fingers. Black coffee with cream, no sugar. Exactly how she drank it. Her eyes narrowed. "How did you know?" Declan glanced toward Milo. Milo raised both hands. "Public information. She orders the same thing every morning at Bluefinch Cafe." "Relax, Miss Lane. I didn't hack anything before breakfast." Harper stared at him. Gage muttered, "That was supposed to make her feel better." Declan looked at Harper. "I can throw him in the fountain if that helps." Milo sighed. "Again, boss." Harper laughed before she could stop herself. It surprised all of them. It surprised her most. The sound felt rusty, like a door opening in a house no one had entered for years. Declan watched her laugh with a stillness that made the moment suddenly intimate. Harper looked down at her coffee. "Where are we going?" "You chose public. We start public." That wasn't an answer. It was the safest part of one. She studied him. "Do you always speak like everything has a second meaning?" "Number." "Liar." This time he almost smiled. They walked through the park with Gage and Milo several steps behind them. Harper was aware of every glance thrown their way. Women looked at Declan, then at her. Men looked at Declan and looked away faster. "You make people nervous," she said. "They usually have a reason." "Should I?" Declan did not answer right away. A carriage passed on the street beyond the trees. The horse's hooves clicked over wet stone. "Yes," he said finally. "A little." Harper stopped walking. Declan stopped too. "That's your sales pitch." "That's the truth. I thought men like you preferred to seem irresistible." His eyes moved over her face, not possessive, not hungry, but attentive in a way that made lying impossible. "Men like me are often irresistible because women are taught to mistake danger for devotion." Harper's fingers tightened around her cup. "That sounds almost self-aware. It cost me plenty." She looked toward the fountain where water spilled white over stone. "And what am I supposed to do with that?" "Stay careful." The answer unsettled her. Bennett always asked for trust as if it were a tax she owed him. Declan handed her caution like a weapon and expected her to keep it sharp. A gust of wind stirred the moss above them. Harper pulled her coat closer. Declan noticed. "Come on." He led her across the park and down a quieter street lined with old brick buildings and iron balconies. The city smelled like rain, coffee, wet leaves, and flowers. Every shop window had Valentine decorations, hearts, and satin ribbons and roses pretending love could be arranged by color. They stopped before a narrow bookshop with green trim and a brass bell above the door. Harper blinked. "This is where you take women for $5 million. Only the dangerous ones." "I'm dangerous. You told me no." She followed him inside. The shop was warm and dim, crowded with shelves that leaned under the weight of old books. Dust floated in bands of light from the front windows. Somewhere in the back, a record player whispered jazz. An elderly man behind the counter looked up from a crossword puzzle and nodded at Declan. "Morning, Mr. Rourke. Arthur. You finally brought someone pretty enough to improve the atmosphere." Harper's eyebrows rose. Declan said don't flirt with her. Arthur grinned. "Then buy a book and get out." For a moment, Declan Rourke did not look like a mafia king. He looked like a man being scolded by someone who had known him before the world became afraid of him. Harper moved deeper into the shop, touching the spines as she passed. Poetry, law, Southern history, astronomy. Her hand stopped. Declan noticed. On the shelf was a weathered book with a navy cloth cover, its title stamped in faded silver. A Guide to the Winter Sky. Harper pulled it free. The pages smelled like paper and time. Inside, the constellations were drawn in delicate white lines, tiny stars connected into shapes humans had invented, because loneliness needed pictures. Declan stood beside her. "You like stars?" It was not a question. "My father did." "Did? He died when I was 17. Declan said nothing. She liked that. No quick apology, no polished sympathy, just space. Harper opened the book to a chart of the February sky. "He used to take me out to Tybee Island when the weather was clear. We would sit on the hood of his truck with gas station hot chocolate, and he'd point out constellations like they were old friends." She smiled faintly. He never got all the names right. What did he call them? Whatever he wanted. That one was the crooked spoon. That one was the woman running late. That one was the dragon with a toothache. Declan's mouth curved. He sounds creative. He was terrible at astronomy. Maybe he was better at making you look up. Harper turned a page, but the words blurred for a second. "My mother says I remember him better than he was." Declan's voice cooled. "People say that when they want ownership of your grief." She looked at him. Something passed between them then, not romance exactly, but recognition. Two people standing on opposite sides of loss and knowing the shape of the same room. Harper closed the book. "I don't need this." Declan took it gently from her hands and carried it to the counter. "I know." "Declan." He glanced back. "It's not a gift." "Then what is it?" "Proof." "Of what?" "That for 10 seconds you wanted something without asking anyone's permission." She had no answer for that. Arthur wrapped the book in brown paper and tied it with string. Declan paid cash. Outside, Harper held the package against her chest as rain tapped the awning above them. Her phone rang. Bennett. The name sat on the screen like a stain. Declan saw it, then turned his back and stepped several feet away. That small act nearly hurt. Harper answered. "What?" Bennett's voice was clipped. "Where are you?" "Out. With him." "Yes." A sharp breath. Harper listened to me very carefully. "My father has people who know Rourke. You do not understand what he is." Harper looked at Declan across the sidewalk. He stood under the rain without an umbrella, speaking quietly to gauge his profile cut in cold lines. "I understand enough." "No, you don't. You're angry with me, so you're playing some reckless little game to feel powerful." Harper closed her eyes. "I'm not playing. You think he sees you? He sees a lonely woman with daddy issues and a wedding ring he can turn into entertainment." Her stomach tightened. Bennett knew exactly where to press. That had always been his gift. Declan looked over. He did not come closer. Harper took a breath. "Are you worried about me or the money?" Silence. Then Bennett said very softly, "You're embarrassing yourself." For once, the words did not make her shrink. They made something inside her go quiet and hard. "I'll talk to you later. Harper." She hung up. Rain beaded on the screen. Declan waited until she looked at him. "Do you still want to continue?" No anger, no demand, no satisfaction. The door still open. Harper slipped the phone into her pocket. Yes, they had lunch on a private balcony above the Savannah River, though private did not mean hidden. Declan had chosen a table where Harper could see the street below the staircase, the exit, the slow movement of cargo ships beyond the railing. She noticed. He noticed that she noticed. The waiter arrived with menus. Declan did not order for her. He simply opened his and waited. Harper read hers twice because she was too aware of him across the table. "You're not going to tell me what I should eat." His eyes lifted. "Do you need help reading?" She laughed. "Bennett orders for me." Declan's expression changed, not much but enough. "Does he?" He says I take too long. "Do you?" "Sometimes." "Good. Good. A woman should take her time choosing what goes into her body." The words were calm, but Harper felt heat rise beneath her skin. She looked back down at the menu. "I'll have the shrimp and grits." Declan gave his order after hers, then leaned back as the waiter left. Harper watched a tugboat cut through the gray water. Why 5 million? Declan folded his hands on the table. Because 1 million sounded like an insult and 10 sounded theatrical. She stared at him. "That is the most insane answer I've ever heard. You asked. Try again." His eyes stayed on hers. I wanted Bennett Shaw to understand that I could put a price in front of him large enough to reveal him. Harper's throat tightened. "And did you? You already know the answer." She looked away. The wind moved through her hair. Somewhere below, a couple posed for a picture beside the river, the woman laughing as the man struggled with an umbrella. So this was about humiliating Bennett. At first. And now. Declan's voice lowered. "Now I'm having lunch with you. That is not an answer. It's the only clean one I have." Their food came. For a few minutes, they ate in silence. Harper hated how good it tasted. She hated that Declan noticed when she liked something and did not make a show of it. Halfway through the meal, she asked, "Did you love her?" The question changed the air. Declan's fork paused. Harper kept her gaze steady. The woman at the grave. Gage, stationed inside near the bar, looked over once, then looked away. Declan set his fork down. "Yes." "What was her name?" "Lena Whitaker." Harper felt the name settle between them. "How long ago?" 5 years. "Valentine's Day." "Yes." The river kept moving below them. Harper spoke carefully. "Is that why you chose today?" Declan's jaw tightened. "I didn't choose today. Today chose me a long time ago." She should have left it there. A polite woman would have, a careful woman would have, but Harper was tired of surviving on unfinished truths. How did she die? Declan looked out over the river. For a long moment she thought he would not answer. Then he said, "Because I was late." The words were flat, but his face was not. His face carried a grief so old it had become bone. Harper's anger softened despite herself. "I'm sorry." He gave a faint shake of his head. "Don't be, you didn't do it." That sentence had a locked door behind it. Harper did not have the key yet. After lunch, Declan drove her himself. Gage and Milo followed in another car close enough to guard, far enough not to crowd. Harper sat in the passenger seat of Declan's black Cadillac, while Savannah rolled by in wet, elegant pieces. "You drive yourself." "When I want to think, and when you don't." "Gage drives." "Because he's better. Because he doesn't ask questions." She glanced at him. "And Milo." Milo asked questions before, during, and after the thing he was told not to question. Harper smiled. Declan's hands were steady on the wheel. No ring, no tattoos. A small scar crossed one knuckle. She wondered how many stories his hands could tell if they were not so loyal to silence. "Where are we going?" "My house." Her body tensed before she could hide it. Declan noticed at once. "We can go somewhere else. You said no hotel room." "It isn't a hotel. That does not automatically make it better." He nodded once and pulled onto the shoulder beneath a canopy of oaks. Harper looked at him. He reached into his coat and took out a slim black keycard. "This opens my front gate and the main doors." It will work until midnight. If you want to leave, you leave. If you want Gage to drive you, tell him. If you want a taxi, I'll call one. If you want me to stay away, I will." She stared at the card in his hand. Bennett had never even given her the code to his phone, though he expected access to hers whenever he felt suspicious. Harper took the keycard slowly. Why? Declan's eyes were dark and unreadable. Because a locked door changes the meaning of every room. She looked down at the card. Then she tucked it into her pocket. Okay. Declan's estate sat beyond old iron gates outside the city, hidden behind oak trees and high walls softened by moss and rain. It was not the glittering palace Harper expected. It was older than that, quieter. A pale stone mansion with green shutters, wide verandas, and windows tall enough to hold ghosts. Inside, the air smelled of cedar coffee and wood smoke. No gold statues. No glass chandeliers screaming for attention. Just dark floors. Books framed black and white photographs and fresh white roses arranged in every room. Too many roses. Harper stopped in the foyer. For Lena. Declan removed his gloves. Yes. Every year. Yes. She looked at a vase overflowing with white blooms near the staircase. That must hurt. It should. Harper turned to him. Number. His gaze found hers. She spoke before she could lose nerve. Pain isn't proof of love. Sometimes it's just a prison with prettier walls. The mansion went quiet around them. Declan looked at her as if she had reached into his chest and touched something no one else was allowed to name. Then Milo appeared in the doorway carrying 2 grocery bags. "Kitchen is stocked, boss. Also, I have a formal complaint about the amount of parsley involved." Gage followed behind him. He ate half the bread in the car. "It was artisanal," Milo said. "That means small and overpriced. I did it a favor." Harper bit back a laugh. Declan took the bags from Milo. "Leave." Milo pointed at Harper. "If he overcooks the pasta, blink twice." Gage dragged him away by the collar. The kitchen was warm, all copper pans, stone counters, and rain-washed windows looking out over a garden. Harper expected a chef to appear. Instead, Declan rolled up his sleeves. "You cook. My grandmother would haunt me if I didn't." "You had a grandmother." He gave her a look. "You know what I mean," she said. "You thought I was born in a dark suit with a gun in my hand. Something close to that." He took garlic from a bowl and began peeling it. "I was born above a bakery in Charleston. My mother taught piano. My father fixed boats. My grandmother believed every problem could be solved with food prayer or yelling." Harper sat at the counter. "That sounds normal." It was. The knife moved cleanly through basil. What happened? His hand paused for half a second. Men who hated normal. She understood he would say no more. Not yet. So she gave him something instead. "My dad made pancakes shaped like stars." Declan looked up. Were they good? They were awful. Burned at the edges, raw in the middle. But he acted like every batch belonged in a museum. A confident criminal, the worst kind. Declan's smile came fast and left faster, but Harper saw it. They ate in the kitchen, not the dining room. Pasta with tomatoes and basil bread warmed in the oven. Red wine Harper only sipped because she wanted her head clear. Declan did not fill silence for comfort. He let it breathe. After dinner, he led her upstairs to a round room at the top of the house. The ceiling was glass dark with rain, but at the press of a button, panels shifted back to reveal the cloudy night sky beyond. Harper stepped inside and forgot to guard her face. Oh! The room held a brass telescope near the window shelves of star charts, and a velvet chair turned toward the heavens. Declan stood behind her. "My father would have loved this," she whispered. She touched the telescope like it might vanish. Declan did not touch her. That mattered. Harper looked through the lens, though clouds hid most of the stars. A few shimmered weakly through breaks in the night. "There," she said, "the crooked spoon." Declan leaned closer. "I'm afraid to ask." "My father's constellation." "Ah." "And over there, the woman running late." "Does she have a name?" "Probably Harper." He was close now. Not too close. Just enough that she could feel the heat of him behind her. She turned. The room seemed smaller than before. Declan's gaze moved to her mouth, then back to her eyes. "May I?" The question was barely louder than the rain. Harper knew what he meant. Her heart struck once hard. She should have thought of Bennett, of the wedding, of her mother, of every consequence waiting outside this room with clean teeth and sharp claws. Instead, she thought of the keycard in her pocket, the door she could open, the choice that was hers. "Yes," she said. Declan moved slowly, giving her time to change her mind. She did not. His kiss was nothing like she expected. Not a claim. Not a conquest. Not the rough hunger of a man used to taking. It was controlled, almost reverent, and somehow that made it more dangerous. His hand lifted, paused near her cheek, and waited until she leaned into it before he touched her. His palm was warm. His mouth was careful. The whole world narrowed to rain breath and the impossible tenderness of a man everyone feared. When he pulled back, he did not chase. Harper opened her eyes. Declan looked shaken. That frightened her more than his power. She whispered, "This is a bad idea." "Yes. I'm getting married in 6 days." "I know. You should stop." "I will, if you ask me to." The answer cut straight through her. Because Bennett would have argued. Bennett would have persuaded, mocked, cornered, made her feel cruel for denying him. Declan simply waited. Harper stepped back, not because she wanted to, but because she needed to know she still could. He let her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Bennett again. She did not answer. Declan looked toward the window, giving her the mercy of not watching her decide. Rain slid down the glass. Somewhere below, the house held its breath. Harper touched her lips with trembling fingers. "What happens at midnight?" Declan turned back to her. "The agreement ends." And then, his eyes stayed on hers. "Then you go where you choose." The clouds shifted above them, and for one brief moment a single star appeared through the dark. Harper looked up. Declan looked at her. The single star above the glass ceiling did not stay long. Clouds swallowed it again, soft and complete, and the observatory fell back into the quiet, blue darkness of rain. Harper lowered her hand from her mouth, but the kiss remained there, warm and impossible, as if Declan had left a flame under her skin and stepped away before it could burn them both. Neither of them spoke for a while. That silence felt different from Bennett's silence. Bennett used silence like a closed fist. Declan's silence was a room with every door visible, every exit unlocked, and every shadow waiting to be named. Harper turned away from the telescope first. "I should go." Declan did not move toward her. "All right." Just that. No argument. No wounded pride. No careful guilt placed into her hands like a gift she was supposed to carry. She looked back at him. That's it. His mouth tightened at one corner. "Were you hoping for a speech?" "Number." "Yes." She almost smiled, but it faded too quickly. "I don't know what I was hoping for." Declan walked to a small table beside the velvet chair and picked up the astronomy book from Arthur's shop. He held it out to her. "Take this with you." Harper did not reach for it. "I told you I didn't agree to gifts. And I told you it was proof. Proof gets complicated when $5 million is waiting at the end of the day." His eyes held hers. "Yes," he said, "it does." That honesty left her nowhere to hide. Below them, the house seemed to breathe with the storm. Somewhere down the hall, an old clock marked the hour, with a low, golden sound. It was not midnight yet, not even close. The contract still had time left on it, but the word contract had begun to feel ridiculous against what had already happened between them. Harper looked at the keycard still tucked in her coat pocket. "I need to see something real." Declan's gaze sharpened. "What do you mean?" "This house is beautiful. The dinner was beautiful. The telescope, the books, the rain on cue, it's all very cinematic." "Is that a complaint?" "It's a warning." "To whom?" "To me." He waited. Harper touched the silver star at her throat. "I can't tell the difference yet between being seen and being studied, between being protected and being handled, between a man making space for me and a man arranging the room so I'll feel grateful." Declan's face changed not with anger but with something deeper. Recognition, perhaps. Or shame. You want the ugly part. I want the honest part. He looked toward the dark glass ceiling where rain gathered in trembling lines. Then he said, "Get your coat." They drove north before dawn. The city fell behind them in wet fragments. Iron balconies, sleeping squares red. Valentine displays fading in shop windows. Gage and Milo followed in a second car without asking questions. Harper sat beside Declan, the astronomy book in her lap, the keycard in her pocket and the taste of his kiss still troubling every careful thought she tried to form. The highway was nearly empty. Declan drove with both hands on the wheel, his profile cut by passing headlights. He looked less like a king here and more like a man holding himself together by force. "Where are we going?" Harper asked. "Charleston. That's 2 hours away." "Yes. You take all your $5 million dates across state lines. Only the ones who ask for honesty." She watched him for a moment. "You know that sounds like a line." "It is not. I'm learning those are the most dangerous ones." Declan did not smile. As dawn lifted slowly over South Carolina, the rain thinned into mist. Charleston appeared in shades of gray and old brick, with narrow street-shuttered windows and churches rising pale against the morning. Declan turned onto a quiet block where the buildings stood close together, their paint faded by salt air and time. He parked in front of a narrow brick storefront with boarded windows and a weathered sign hanging crooked above the door. Rourke Family Bakery. The letters were chipped. One corner of the sign had burned black. Harper read it twice. "This was yours." Declan cut the engine. "My family's." He stepped out before she could ask anything else. The air smelled of damp stone, old smoke, and the sea somewhere beyond the roofs. Harper followed him to the front door. Declan unlocked it with an old brass key. The hinges complained as the door opened. Inside, dust rested over everything like a second skin. A glass display case stood empty near the counter. Shelves lined the walls. Old ovens sat in the back, black and cold. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet. On one wall, faded photographs hung in crooked frames. A woman with dark hair dusted flour from a boy's nose. A man with rolled sleeves lifted a tray of bread. A child with sharp eyes and a crooked smile stood on a stool, both hands buried in dough. Harper stepped closer. The child was Declan, not the man beside her, not the feared name whispered in clubs and offices and courtrooms. A boy with flour on his cheek and happiness all over his face. "You looked happy," she said. "I was." The simplicity of his answer hurt. Declan walked to a doorframe near the back. Pencil marks climbed the wood, each one labeled with a date and a name. Declan, age 6. Declan, age 9. Declan, age 12. His fingers touched the last mark. "My mother measured me here every birthday." Harper stood beside him, but did not touch him. She taught piano. He nodded. At the church, at the school, in people's living rooms if they could not afford much. She believed every child should know at least one song by heart. "And your father fixed boats and baked bread badly." Harper looked toward the ovens. "You said your grandmother would haunt you if you didn't cook. She ran this place before him. She said hunger made people mean and good food made them confess. Was she right? Usually." Harper smiled faintly, but Declan did not see it. His gaze had gone to the blackened corner of the ceiling. "What happened here?" she asked. His hand fell from the doorframe. "My father refused to pay protection money to men who owned this street before I knew what ownership meant. He thought the police would help. He thought being decent would matter." Declan's voice stayed even, but the room seemed colder around it. "One night they locked the doors and set the back on fire." Harper's breath caught. "My parents were upstairs." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of smoke that had never left the walls. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Declan looked at the ovens. "I was 16. I was at the library, studying for a debate tournament." He said it like the details still disgusted him. "If I had come home earlier, I might have died with them. Or you might have died trying to save them." He glanced at her. "Does that help?" "Number." "Good. I hate comfort that lies." Harper looked back at the photographs at the boy with flour on his face. "What did you do after?" went to live with my grandmother's sister. Finished school, got scholarships, went to law school. You wanted to be a prosecutor. I wanted rules to mean something. And then, his mouth hardened. Then I watched the men who killed my family walk free. Because evidence disappeared, witnesses changed their minds, and one detective bought a boat he could not afford. Harper understood before he said it. So you became the thing they feared. No, Declan said, turning to her. At first I became useful. I knew law, I knew money, I knew how to read men. Then I became necessary. Then I became worse. The truth sat between them, unpolished and ugly. Harper should have been afraid. She was, but not only of him. She was afraid of how much sense pain could make when it was given a weapon. Declan led her into the back room. There was a desk covered with dust, a broken chair, and a metal cabinet. On the wall hung one newer photograph protected by glass. Declan and a young woman stood outside a courthouse. She had dark curls, bright eyes, and a red scarf wrapped around her neck. Declan was younger, leaner, less guarded, wearing a suit that did not yet look like armor. Lena, Harper said. Declan nodded. She was beautiful. She was impossible. The softness in his voice surprised her. How? She argued with judges, stray dogs, parking meters, and me. Mostly me. Harper almost smiled. What did she do? Legal aid attorney. She represented women who could not afford to leave dangerous men. Harper's eyes moved to him, like Willow House. Yes. Is that why you fund it? Declan looked at the photograph. It began that way. And now, his gaze shifted to Harper. I don't know. That answer sounded too honest to doubt. Harper studied Lena's face. She expected jealousy, but what came instead was sadness. This woman had once stood where Harper now stood, seeing the man beneath the monster, and asking him to return before he was gone completely. Did she know what you were? Declan's jaw flexed. She knew what I was becoming. And she stayed. For a while. What changed? I did not. The room felt smaller. She asked me to leave Savannah with her, he said. She had a job offer in Boston. Said we could start again. Said if I stayed, I would turn grief into a throne and call it justice. Harper looked at him. She was right. Yes. The word left him like blood from an old wound. Declan reached into the desk drawer and removed a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, unused. Harper's throat tightened. You were going to propose. Valentine's Day 5 years ago. He stared at the ring, but his eyes were somewhere else now. She asked me to meet her for dinner. I was late. Harper barely breathed. I was handling a debt. A man had stolen from me. I wanted him afraid before dessert. His hand closed around the box. The car bomb was meant for me. Lena took my car because hers would not start. She died 3 blocks from the restaurant with flowers on the seat beside her. Rain tapped against the boarded window. Harper felt it then, the true shape of him. Not grief alone, not love alone. Guilt sharpened into violence and worn so long it had fused with his bones. Declan's voice dropped. I killed the men who planned it. She did not look away. Did that bring her back? His eyes found hers. Number. Did it make you feel better? For 1 hour. And after. I became very good at needing another hour. The honesty should have repelled her. Instead, it made her heart ache in a way she did not trust. Harper stepped back. I need air. Declan moved aside at once. Outside, the morning had brightened, but the street still looked washed in gray. Harper stood on the sidewalk with both arms wrapped around herself, breathing as if the bakery had filled her lungs with smoke. Declan came out behind her, but kept his distance. You asked for honest. I know. I should have given you less. No. She turned to face him. That's the problem. You gave me exactly what I asked for. His expression did not change, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. Ask the rest. Harper's pulse beat hard in her throat. How many people have you hurt? Enough. That's not an answer. It is the only one that does not insult either of us. She nodded slowly. Do you regret it? Yes. Would you do it again? The question hung between them with all its teeth showing. Declan looked down the wet street. For revenge number. For power. Number. To protect someone. His silence answered first. Then he said yes. Harper closed her eyes. There it is. What? The beautiful cage. His brow tightened. She opened her eyes and looked at him fully. Bennett controls with charm. He makes every insult sound like concern. He makes every demand sound practical. He never says he owns me. He just behaves like the whole world already agreed that he does. Declan said nothing. You are different, Harper continued. You ask, you wait, you open doors, but you also use fear and money like they are languages everyone should understand. You say protection, but what happens when protection becomes permission to decide for someone else? The words struck him. She saw it. I have never decided for you. Not yet. His gaze hardened, not at her, but at himself. Harper's voice softened. Declan, I don't know if you're the first man who truly sees me, or the most dangerous man who ever learned how. The street went still around them. Declan reached into his coat and took out the key card. Then her phone, which she had left in the car console. Then a folded bank document confirming the pending transfer. He placed all three on the hood of the Cadillac. What are you doing? Harper asked. Ending the contract if that is what you need. She stared at him. Gage can drive you back. Or Milo. Or I can call a car with no one attached to me. The money is still yours. I will not call. I will not follow. I will not ask Arthur about you. I will not have Milo check where you buy coffee. From the second car, Milo's voice carried faintly. That was one time. Gage shut the door on him. Harper did not laugh. Declan looked only at her. If I have to convince you I am not your cage, then I am already building bars. Something in her chest gave way. Not surrender. Not forgiveness. Recognition. This was not Bennett's version of letting go full of threats disguised as sorrow. Declan meant it. She could walk away and he would stand there in the rain and let the wound happen. Harper looked at the phone, the key card, the money. Then she picked up the key card and put it back in her pocket. I didn't say I wanted to leave. Declan went very still. I said I needed to know where the door was. His voice was rougher when he answered. And now I know. Neither of them moved. A church bell rang somewhere blocks away. Harper took her phone too, but left the bank document on the car. I'll stay until midnight. Declan looked at her as if she had handed him something fragile and did not know whether he deserved to hold it. All right. They drove back to Savannah in a different silence. No music. No easy jokes from the second car. No rain heavy enough to fill the space between them. Harper watched the road unspool beneath the tires and thought about locked doors. Some were made of wood and metal. Some were made of shame. Some were made of kindness that asked for too much in return. By the time they reached Declan's estate, the afternoon had turned gold at the edges. The storm had passed, leaving the garden slick and shining. White roses crowded the rooms, their scent too sweet, too funeral. Declan paused in the foyer. I can have them removed. Harper looked at the roses. No, not for me. For me, then. She turned to him. He called for Gage. Within minutes, staff appeared quietly and began carrying vase after vase from the rooms. No drama, no ceremony. Just one white arrangement after another leaving the house. Harper watched Declan watch them go. His face did not break, but something in the house did. The air changed. That evening Harper asked for pizza. Declan looked personally offended. You can cook pasta from memory, but you object to pizza. I object to bad pizza. Then buy good pizza. I know men who can move weapons across 3 states, and yet no one in Savannah can make a proper crust. Tragic. He ordered from a place Arthur recommended. They ate on the floor of the library because Harper said the dining room looked like a room where people negotiated inheritances. The library had tall shelves, a low fire, and rainlight fading beyond the windows. Harper sat cross-legged on the rug with a slice of pizza in one hand, and her shoes kicked off beside her. Declan sat across from her, sleeves rolled to his forearms, looking absurdly powerful and slightly confused by paper plates. Harper pointed at him. You look like you've never eaten on the floor. I have. When? Prison, holding cell, not recommended. She froze. He glanced up. Joke. Was it? Number. She stared. He took a bite of pizza. You're terrible at this. At what? Being comforting. I warned you. She laughed, and the sound loosened the room. For a while, they talked about small things. Her father's burned pancakes, his grandmother's yelling, Riley's habit of threatening men with office supplies, Milo's inability to whisper, Arthur's bookshop. The way Savannah looked different after midnight. It felt almost normal. Then Milo appeared at the library door. His face had lost its humor. Boss. Declan looked up. What? Cal Mercer's people are moving tonight. Warehouse off Bay Street. They think you're distracted. The softness left Declan so quickly Harper felt the loss like cold air. His body did not change much. He did not stand. He did not raise his voice. But the man across from her vanished, and the one everyone feared took his place. How many? 6 confirmed, maybe more. Gage, already outside. Declan set down his plate. Harper watched him. What happens if you leave? She asked. Declan's gaze returned to her. No lie came. Someone gets hurt, and if you don't, someone else might. She nodded slowly. This is your world. Yes. Do you want it? The question seemed to enter him deeper than he expected. He looked around the library at the books, the fire, the half-eaten pizza, Harper's bare feet on the rug, the room no longer filled with roses for the dead. His answer came quietly. Number. Milo shifted at the door, startled by it. Declan stood and took out his phone. For one terrible second, Harper thought he would order blood with the same calm he used to order coffee. Instead, he said, "Send Gage. No weapons unless fired upon first. Secure the site. Hold Mercer alive. I want records, not bodies." Milo blinked. Records. Declan's voice sharpened. Did I stutter? No, boss. Milo left. Harper rose from the rug. Declan did not look proud of himself. He looked tired. That was because of me, she said. Number. Declan. He turned to her. That was because I heard myself tell you I didn't want this. The honesty settled between them again. The clock in the hall struck 11:30, too close to midnight. Declan drove Harper home himself. The streets of Savannah glistened beneath street lamps. Valentine decorations still hung in windows, though the day was nearly over. Red roses drooped in buckets outside closed shops. Restaurants emptied. Couples leaned into each other under awnings, unaware that somewhere nearby a woman in a black Cadillac was holding the ruins of one life and the outline of another. At her apartment building, Declan stopped by the curb. Neither of them moved. Finally, he reached into the inside pocket of his coat and took out the bank document again. The transfer clears by morning. Harper looked at the paper. $5 million. Enough to leave Bennett without fear. Enough to fund Willow House for years. Enough to change everything and corrupt the memory of every honest second she had spent with Declan. She did not take it. I don't want your money. It was the agreement. I know. Then why refuse? Harper looked through the windshield at her building at the life waiting upstairs with its wedding invitations and raised neckline and Mrs. Bennett Shaw stitched in silk. Because if I keep it, Bennett will say he was right. My mother will say I ruined myself for scandal. And some small, scared part of me will wonder if today was something you bought and I sold. Declan's face tightened. It was not. Then let me prove it. His hand lowered. She leaned across the space between them and kissed his cheek. Not his mouth. His cheek. A goodbye with a pulse. When she pulled back, his eyes were closed. Harper. She opened the door before his voice could undo her. At the building entrance, she turned. Declan sat motionless behind the wheel, one hand still holding the bank paper. You don't have to keep bringing roses to a ghost just because you survived, she said. Then she went inside. The lobby lights hummed softly above her. The elevator smelled of raincoats and old perfume. When the doors closed, Harper leaned against the wall and pressed her hand over her heart. Upstairs, her apartment waited in perfect silence. The wedding dress glowed by the window. Her phone began to ring. Bennett. Harper watched his name flash across the screen until it stopped. Then she opened her banking app, stared at the pending transfer, and waited for Mourning, with her shoes still wet from Declan Rourke's storm. Mourning arrived without mercy. Savannah looked washed clean from Harper's window, but nothing inside her felt clean yet. The sky had cleared to a pale winter blue. Sunlight touched the wedding dress near the window, turning the ivory fabric warm and innocent, as if it had not watched her come home after midnight with another man's kiss on her cheek and another future trembling in her hands. Harper had slept for less than an hour. She woke on the couch with her coat still on her phone in her hand and the banking app open on the screen. The transfer had cleared. $5 million sat in her account. For a long moment she simply stared at the number. It did not look real. It looked like a mistake, a dare, a door, a trap. It looked like freedom, dressed in someone else's power. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She imagined what that money could do. A new building for Willow House. Emergency apartments. Lawyers for women who could not afford safety. Plane tickets, therapy, childcare. 1,000 doors opened for women who had been told they were lucky to have a roof, even if the roof came with fists, insults, tracking apps, and apologies that smelled like lies. Then she imagined Bennett's face when he found out. Not hurt, not betrayed. Hungry. She saw him reaching for Declan's card. She heard him say marriage was partnership, as if her body, her time, her fear, and her humiliation were assets he had already counted. She saw her mother in the bridal boutique saying this wedding matters. Not Harper. The wedding. Harper sat up slowly. Her apartment was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic below. The black heels she had worn the night before sat by the door, still damp at the soles. Her star pendant rested against her chest. She touched it once, then opened the transfer page. Declan Rourke Holdings. Return transfer. Amount. $5 million. Her hand shook when she typed it. Not because she wanted to keep the money, because sending it back meant she could no longer pretend the problem was price. The problem was choice. The screen asked for confirmation. Harper looked at the wedding dress. She looked at the invitations. She looked at the ring on her finger, a diamond Bennett's mother had chosen because she said Harper would have picked something too modest. Then Harper pressed send. The confirmation appeared. Transfer completed. The apartment did not change. No music swelled. No lights flickered. No voice from heaven applauded. But Harper's lungs opened. For the first time in months, she could breathe all the way down. Her phone rang 37 minutes later. Bennett. She let it ring. He called again and again. By the fourth call, Harper was standing in the kitchen making coffee. She did not want wearing jeans, a gray sweater, and no makeup over the pale marks at her wrists. The fifth call stopped halfway through. Then someone pounded on her door. Not knocked, pounded. Harper set the mug down. Harper Bennett called from the hallway. Open the door. She walked toward it slowly. Her body remembered him before her mind could argue. The quick pulse, the shallow breath, the instinct to soften her face so the room would not get worse. She stopped with her hand on the lock. That instinct was not love. She opened the door, but kept the chain fastened. Bennett stood outside in a dark suit, hair still wet from the shower jaw, tight enough to crack stone. Take the chain off. Number. His eyes flicked to the chain, then back to her. Don't be childish. Don't come to my apartment uninvited. Your apartment. He gave a short laugh. That's interesting. Her stomach turned. What do you want? His face darkened. You sent it back. Harper said nothing. $5 million, Harper. $5 million. And you sent it back like you were returning an ugly sweater. It wasn't mine. It was yours, which means it was ours. No Bennett. His hand came up and pressed against the door. The chain pulled tight. Harper did not step back, though every nerve asked her to. He lowered his voice, opened the door. Number. Something ugly moved behind his eyes. Then, like always, he found the charming mask again. His shoulders eased, his mouth softened. He looked almost wounded. Sweetheart, I'm sorry. I'm upset because I'm scared. You vanished for a day with Declan Rourke. You ignored my calls. Now you are making reckless financial decisions. Anyone would be concerned. Harper looked at the man in front of her and saw the performance from a distance. It was flawless. That was the horror. "You're not scared for me," she said. "You're angry you didn't get the money." His smile disappeared. "Take off the chain." "Number." "Harper." She reached for the door. His palm flattened harder against it. For 1 second, the narrow gap between them became a battlefield. Then a voice came from the hall. "I would move that hand before I make it a medical issue." Bennett turned. Riley Monroe stood near the elevator wearing black leggings, an oversized sweatshirt, and the expression of a woman who had waited years for this exact moment. In one hand, she held a paper bag of breakfast sandwiches. In the other, she held a small can of pepper spray. Bennett sneered. "Of course." Riley walked closer. "Good morning to you too, Discount Prince. This is between me and my fiancé." Harper unhooked the chain. Bennett's face shifted with triumph. Then Harper stepped into the hallway instead of letting him in. Riley moved to stand beside her. Harper looked at Bennett's expensive shoes, his perfect cuffs, his beautiful angry face, and wondered how many years of her life she had wasted trying to make that face gentle. "I'm not your fiancé anymore." The hallway went quiet. Bennett blinked once. "What did you say?" Harper pulled the engagement ring from her finger. It caught the morning light like ice. "I'm not marrying you." Bennett looked at the ring, then at her, as if she had spoken a language he considered beneath him. "You're having some kind of episode." "Number. You spent 1 day with a criminal and now you think you're brave." Riley stepped forward. "Keep talking. I'm begging you." Harper touched Riley's arm without looking away from Bennett. "I should have done this a long time ago," Harper said. "Before the dress. Before the invitations. Before I let your family turn my life into a merger with flowers." Bennett's face flushed. "You ungrateful little fool." There he was. Not hidden now. Not polished. Just the man beneath the suit. Harper held out the ring. Bennett did not take it, so she placed it on the small table by her door. "You can tell people whatever makes you feel clean," she said. "I know what happened." His voice dropped. "No one will believe you." The sentence hit the air like a slap. Riley went still. Harper felt the old fear rise. Cold, obedient, trained. Then she heard Maya's voice from Willow House. "Then you still have time." Harper lifted her chin. "Maybe not everyone," she said, "but I believe me now." Bennett stared at her. For once, he had no answer ready. Riley smiled without warmth. "Elevator is that way." Bennett leaned closer to Harper, close enough that his cologne reached her. "You'll come crawling back when Rourke gets bored of playing savior." Harper's throat tightened, but her voice held. "I'd rather be abandoned by a man who opened the door than kept by one who hid the lock." Bennett's eyes burned. Then he turned and walked toward the elevator. The doors opened. He stepped inside. His face smoothed before they closed, already rehearsing the version of the story where he was the victim. When he was gone, Harper stood very still. Riley put the pepper spray into her sweatshirt pocket. "I was hoping he'd give me a reason." Harper laughed once. The sound broke in the middle. Riley caught her before she hit the floor. The crying did not come politely. It came from somewhere old and tired. Harper cried in the hallway with her best friend holding her while the engagement ring sat on the table beside the door like a dead insect made of diamonds. Riley did not tell her to calm down. She did not say Bennett was not worth it. She just held her and said, "I've got you, I've got you." Later, after coffee had gone cold, and Riley had forced her to eat half a breakfast sandwich, Harper drove to her mother's house. She almost turned around twice. Mary Ann Lane lived in a white colonial home on a quiet street where every lawn looked disciplined. Boxwoods trimmed into perfect lines. Porch columns washed clean. Curtains pale and still. The kind of house where sadness would be asked to use a coaster. Harper parked at the curb and sat with both hands on the steering wheel. Inside, wedding decisions were waiting. So was her mother. Mary Ann opened the door before Harper knocked, dressed in cream slacks and a silk blouse, phone in hand. "There you are." Bennett's mother called me in tears. Harper stepped inside. The dining room table was covered with place cards, floral samples, ribbon swatches, and a cake tasting box. A wedding planner Harper barely knew stood with a tablet against her chest, smiling too brightly. Marianne looked at Harper's bare hand. Her face changed. "Leave us," she said. The planner gathered her things in silence and slipped out the front door. Marianne waited until the door shut. Then she turned. "What have you done?" Harper stood at the edge of the dining room. "I called off the wedding." Marianne's hand went to the back of a chair. "You are not thinking clearly." "I am thinking clearly for the first time in years. This is because of him." Harper knew which him she meant. "No, this is because of me." Marianne laughed softly, not because anything was funny, but because the alternative was screaming. "You spent one day with a gangster, and now you are throwing away a good man, a respected family, and a future most women would be grateful for. Bennett is not a good man. He made a mistake. He made dozens. I just kept naming them something else." Marianne's eyes flashed. "Marriage is not about keeping score. No, it's about not flinching when your husband walks into the room." The words landed. For one heartbeat, something like fear moved across Marianne's face. Then she buried it. "Did he hit you?" Harper almost smiled. The question was so small, so late. "Number." Marianne exhaled, as if that settled it. Harper stared at her mother. "That's where your line is. Do not twist my words. He grabbed me. He humiliated me. He lied. He watched another man offer money for my time and thought about what he could buy with it. He made me feel dramatic for noticing pain." Marianne pressed her fingers to her temples. "You have always been sensitive." Harper felt the room tilt. There it was again. The old spell. Sensitive. Difficult. Emotional. Words designed to make a woman distrust her own bruises if they did not show. "No," Harper said. "I have been trained to apologize for having a pulse." Marianne's mouth tightened. "Enough. Number." Her mother stared at her. Harper had never said no to Marianne like that. Not cleanly. Not without softening it afterward. "No," Harper repeated. "You don't get to call this nerves. You don't get to turn Bennett into stability because his family knows which fork to use. You don't get to hide my skin smooth, my hair, raise my neckline, and call it protection." Marianne went pale. "I was trying to help you. You were trying to make sure no one looked too closely." The room went silent. On the table, tiny cards with guest names sat in neat rows, strangers and relatives assigned to their proper places. Harper thought of all the ways a life could become a seating chart. Marianne's voice softened, which made it more dangerous. "You have no idea what women survive to keep a family standing." Harper's anger faltered. For the first time, she saw her mother not as a wall, but as a woman who had spent so long holding one up that she believed collapse was a moral failure. "What did you survive, Mom?" Marianne looked away. The question hung there unwanted and alive. Harper stepped closer. "Dad would have asked if I was happy." Marianne's eyes snapped back. "Do not use your father against me." "I'm not. I'm remembering him." "You remember the easy parts." "I remember him looking at me like I was not something to fix." Marianne's face cracked. "Just a little." Harper touched the star pendant at her throat. "He told me different stars mattered too. You told me to cover mine." Tears gathered in Marianne's eyes, but she did not let them fall. "I wanted the world to be kinder to you. You taught me to be cruel to myself before anyone else could." The sentence broke something neither of them could immediately repair. Marianne sat down. For once, she looked small in her perfect house. Harper's voice softened. "I love you. But I will not marry a man who makes me disappear just because everyone likes the shape of the life he offers." Marianne looked at the table. "The deposits are paid." Harper almost laughed. It hurt too much. "I'll help with what I can. People are coming. Then they can go home. This will be humiliating." Harper stood straight. "For whom?" Her mother closed her eyes. Harper walked to the door. At the threshold, Marianne spoke. "Harper." She turned. Her mother looked at her bare hand, then at her face. "Are you safe?" It was not an apology, but it was the first honest question Marianne had asked all week. Harper answered it honestly. "I'm getting there." She left before her mother could turn fear back into instructions. By evening, the story had begun to move. That was the thing about rich families. They dressed gossip like concern and passed it around with wine. Bennett's mother called Mary Ann. Mary Ann called Harper. Harper did not answer. Riley sent screenshots from people who suddenly wanted to know if Harper was okay, which mostly meant they wanted to know if she had truly run off with Declan Rourke. Bennett sent one message. "You are making a mistake you cannot afford." Harper stared at it for a long time. Then she blocked him. Across town, Bennett Shaw walked into Declan Rourke's riverfront office with a folder under his arm and humiliation dressed as confidence. Gage met him near the elevator. "Mr. Rourke is busy." Bennett lifted his chin. "He'll see me." Gage looked at him with open boredom. Then his earpiece buzzed. After a pause, Gage stepped aside. "Lucky you." Declan's office overlooked the river, all glass, dark wood, and gray light. The city moved behind him in slow reflections. He stood at the window when Bennett entered, hands in his pockets, jacket off, white shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms. Milo sat on the edge of a side table, eating almonds from a paper cup. Bennett glanced at him. "Is this private?" Milo shook the cup. "Not emotionally." Declan turned. "Say what you came to say." Bennett placed the folder on the desk. "You interfered with my engagement." Declan did not move. Bennett opened the folder with theatrical precision. Inside were printed messages, vendor invoices, a draft statement from his family's attorney, and a ridiculous document full of words like damages, reputational harm, and emotional distress. Declan looked at the papers, then at Bennett. "You came to extort me." "I came to resolve a problem. You are the problem." Bennett's jaw tightened. "You think this is romantic? Picking up wounded women in clubs and filling their heads with fantasies." Declan stepped away from the window. The room seemed to change temperature. Milo stopped eating. Bennett felt it, but pride kept him upright. "Harper is confused," Bennett said. "She is emotional. She has always been impressionable." Declan walked closer. "Say her name with respect." Bennett swallowed, then smiled. "There it is." The performance. The dangerous man pretending he cares. Declan stopped at the edge of the desk. "I do not pretend." "No, you pay $5 million for a day. That is not care. That is ownership with better lighting." The words struck close enough that Declan's eyes darkened. Bennett saw it and mistook pain for weakness. "I want compensation," he said, quietly. "Enough to cover the damage to my family's position and the Charleston property deal Harper has endangered." Declan looked at the folder again. "How much?" Bennett named a number. Milo choked on an almond. "Sorry," he said. "That was my soul leaving my body." Declan ignored him. "You put your hands on her." Bennett's confidence flickered. "What did she tell you?" Declan's voice lowered. "Enough. She exaggerates." Declan moved so fast, Bennett took a step back before he realized he had done it. No one touched him. No one needed to. Declan stood within arm's reach, his face calm, his eyes empty of every soft thing Harper had seen in his library. "Careful," Declan said. Bennett gave a weak laugh. "Are you threatening me?" "Yes." Gage shifted near the door. Declan continued quieter. "And I am choosing to stop there because Harper asked nothing of me, and I am learning the difference between protection and possession." Bennett stared. "You think she'll save you?" Declan's expression did not change. "No, that is my work." For a second, the office held only the sound of the river beyond the glass. Then Declan picked up the folder and handed it back. "Leave Savannah for a while. Call it vacation. Call it business. Call it whatever helps you sleep. If you contact Harper again, I will not be the man she wants me to become." Bennett took the folder with stiff fingers. "You can't scare me forever." Declan's eyes moved over him. "I do not need forever." Bennett left with his face red and his shoulders too straight. When the elevator doors closed, Milo let out a breath. That was almost healthy. Declan returned to the window. "Do not ruin it." Milo tossed an almond into his mouth. "You let him walk out." "I did." "You hate that." "Yes." Gage looked at Declan for a long moment. Then he said, "She is changing you." Declan watched the river move beneath the evening light. "No," he said. "She is making it harder for me to lie about wanting to change." The next morning, Harper returned to Willow House. She wore a simple black dress and boots. No ring, no foundation over her hands. Her hair was pulled back in a loose knot. She felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with clothing. The shelter smelled like coffee laundry soap and crayons. Normal life, broken life, rebuilt life, all of it happening at once. At the front desk, the director looked at Harper's hand and said nothing. She simply handed her a stack of intake forms and squeezed her shoulder. That was mercy. Harper spent the morning helping a woman file for an emergency protective order. Then she sat with Maya while Jonah colored a fire truck green because red was boring. Maya looked at Harper's bare finger. "You did it." Harper looked down. "Yes." "Was it hard?" "Yes." Maya nodded like this confirmed something important. "Was it worth it?" Harper watched Jonah press too hard with the crayon until the tip snapped. "I think so." "You think?" Harper smiled faintly. "Leaving is one door. Learning not to walk back through it is another." Maya held that sentence for herself. Then she said, "I got the flowers again." Harper straightened. Maya pulled a card from her pocket and handed it over. No threats. Only apology. Only longing. Only carefully chosen words designed to make escape feel like cruelty. Harper read it once. Then she looked at Maya. "What do you want to do?" Maya's eyes filled. "I don't know." "That's allowed. I miss who he was when he was good." Harper nodded. "Me too." Maya looked up. Harper did not take it back. She did not dress herself in professional distance. "I miss the version of him that made me feel chosen," Harper said. "But I'm starting to understand that being chosen by someone who keeps shrinking you is not love. It is a slow disappearance." Maya wiped her cheek. "What if I get lonely? Then we build a life loud enough to answer." For the rest of the day, Harper worked until her body ached. She answered calls. She filled out forms. She sat on the floor with Jonah and helped him tape his broken crayon back together. She drank terrible coffee and listened to women tell stories that sounded too much like hers and nothing like hers at all. By 5, a courier arrived with a sealed envelope for the director. The director opened it in her office. 5 minutes later, she called Harper in. Her face was pale. "Do you know anything about this?" Harper stepped inside. "About what?" The director handed her the papers. A grant. A massive one. Enough to fund emergency housing, legal aid, child therapy, transportation, and a new security wing for Willow House. It came through a public foundation. No conditions. No publicity requirement. No donor appearance. Harper already knew before she saw the initials at the bottom of the note. For doors that stay open. DR. Her throat tightened. The director watched her. "Harper." She folded the paper carefully. "It's legitimate. Is there a reason we should refuse it?" Harper thought of Declan in the bakery telling her what revenge had cost. Declan in the library choosing records instead of bodies. Declan in the car holding $5 million she had refused to let define them. "No," she said, "there is not." Outside, the sun lowered behind the trees. Warm light came through the shelter windows, falling across donated coats, children's drawings, and a bulletin board covered in job postings and court dates. Riley picked Harper up after work and drove her to a small diner because she said emotional revolutions required fries. They sat in a back booth under a buzzing light. Riley poured ketchup onto a plate with aggressive focus. "So," Riley said, "are we going to discuss the criminal with the cheekbones?" Harper looked at her water glass. "His name is Declan. Tragic. I was hoping it was something less attractive." Harper smiled despite herself. Riley leaned forward. "Do you love him?" The question did not shock Harper. That was how she knew the answer had been waiting. "I don't know how to love someone like him." "That's not what I asked." Harper stared out the window. A couple walked past hand in hand, their laughter fogging the glass for a moment, before they disappeared down the street. "I know I don't want him because he saved me," Harper said. "Good. And I don't want him because he paid attention when Bennett didn't. Also good. And I don't want him because I'm scared to be alone. Riley ate a fry. Excellent. Very mature. Annoying, but mature. Harper looked back at her. I want him because when I told him I needed a door, he gave me one. And when I used it, he didn't punish me for walking through. Riley's teasing faded. That sounds like love, Harp. Harper's eyes burned. It also sounds dangerous. Both can be true. I don't want to become one of those women who mistakes intensity for intimacy. Then don't. Riley reached across the table and took her hand. Go slowly. Keep your keys. Keep your job. Keep your friends. Keep your no. And if he ever makes you feel small, I still have pepper spray. Harper laughed through the sudden tears. I know. Riley squeezed her hand. But Harper, yes, not every open door's a trap. That night, Harper went home to the apartment that no longer felt like a stage set for someone else's marriage. She took down the wedding dress first, not angrily, carefully. She laid it across the bed, unzipped the garment bag, and touched the lace one last time. It was still beautiful. That did not make it hers. She folded the bachelorette sash and placed it in a drawer. She gathered the invitations from the counter. She removed the silk robe from the bedroom door and put it into a donation bag. Then she stood in front of the mirror. The woman looking back at her had tired eyes, bare hands, uneven skin, and no diamond. She looked real. Harper opened the window. Cool air moved into the room. Somewhere in the city, a siren cried and faded. Music drifted up from a passing car. Savannah breathed around her, old and haunted and alive. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. For 1 second, fear moved through her. Then she opened it. Bennett had found another way through. You have no idea what you've done. Harper stared at the message. Her thumb hovered over the screen. For years, she would have answered, explained, defended, softened. Tried to end the storm by stepping into it. This time, she took a screenshot and sent it to Riley. Then she blocked the number. A minute later, Riley replied, "Proud of you. Also still willing to commit light crimes." Harper laughed. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and picked up the astronomy book Declan had bought her. The brown paper wrapping was still folded inside the cover. She opened to the chart of the February sky. The crooked spoon, the woman running late, the dragon with a toothache. The names her father had invented were nowhere on the page, but Harper could see them anyway. She could see herself as a girl on the hood of his truck, hot chocolate burning her tongue, her father pointing up as if the darkness was not empty but full of hidden maps. Her phone sat beside her. Declan had not called. Not once. No pressure. No demand. No dramatic message. No reminder of what he had given or what she had refused. His silence was not absence. It was restraint. Harper ran her thumb over the star pendant at her throat. Then she opened her contacts. She did not call him. Not yet. Instead, she called her mother. Mary Ann answered on the third ring. Harper. Her voice sounded smaller than usual. Harper looked at the open book in her lap. I'm safe. A quiet breath came through the line. Thank you for telling me. Neither woman spoke. There were years between them. Years of corrections and swallowed anger and love twisted into control, because control felt less helpless than fear. Mary Ann said I canceled the florist. Harper closed her eyes. Thank you. And the venue. Harper opened them. Her mother continued, voice tight but steady. Bennett's mother called again. I told her any further questions should go through you directly and that you are under no obligation to answer. Harper's throat closed. That must have been hard. Yes. A pause. Not as hard as realizing you thought I cared more about flowers than you. Harper pressed her fingers to her mouth. Mary Ann breathed unsteadily. I don't know how to do this correctly. Neither do I. I still think Declan Rourke is dangerous. He is. That does not comfort me. I know. Another silence. Then Mary Ann said, your father would be proud that you said no. Harper's tears fell before she could stop them. For once, she let them. After the call, Harper slept. Not deeply, but honestly. No dreams of Bennett. No wedding aisle. No raised neckline. just rain on glass and a white rose floating down a dark river until dawn touched it gold. When morning came, she knew where to go. She dressed simply. Jeans, boots, navy coat, the star pendant. No armor borrowed from anyone else's expectations. The astronomy book went into her bag. Outside, Savannah was bright after the storm. Sunlight shone on wet sidewalks. Delivery men carried flowers past closed restaurants. The Valentine displays had begun to come down, red hearts peeled from windows, roses swept from entryways, candles boxed away until next year. Harper walked to her car. She paused before getting in and looked back at her apartment building. The woman who had returned there 2 nights ago had been caught between a contract and a wedding. The woman leaving now belonged to neither. She drove through the city without hurrying, past Forsyth Park, where the fountain gleamed white in the sun, past the Velvet Room, quiet, now behind dark glass, past Willow House, where children's drawings filled the front windows. Then, farther toward the old cemetery where the road narrowed and oak branches reached over the street like hands. By the time Harper turned toward Laurel Grove, she was no longer running from one life to another. She was walking by choice. Harper found Declan in the cemetery where the story had truly begun. Laurel Grove was quiet beneath the morning light. The rain had left silver beads on the grass and darkened the stone paths until they looked almost black. Old oaks leaned over the graves, their branches heavy with Spanish moss. The city noise felt far away here, softened by distance, swallowed by names carved into marble, and years no one could return to. Declan stood before Lena Whitaker's grave with no umbrella and no white roses. That was the first thing Harper noticed. For 5 years, he had filled rooms with flowers for a woman who could no longer smell them. He had built a kingdom out of grief, then called every act of violence loyalty. But now his hands were empty. Gage waited near the car far enough to give him privacy. Milo stood beside him, unusually quiet. Declan did not turn when Harper stepped through the cemetery gate. Maybe he had heard her. Maybe a man like him always knew when someone entered his world. Harper walked slowly, the astronomy book tucked beneath one arm. Her boots sank slightly into the wet grass. Her heartbeat was steady, but not calm. Declan spoke before she reached him. "You should not be here." Harper stopped a few feet away. "I know." He turned then. His face changed when he saw her. Not much. Declan Rourke had spent too many years training his expressions into obedience. But Harper knew where to look now. The tightening around his eyes. The small shift in his breath. The way his hand moved once as if he wanted to reach for her and stopped himself before the want became a decision. "You came anyway," he said. Yes. The grave lay between them. Lena's name caught the light. Harper looked down and saw a small velvet box resting on the stone. She knew what was inside before Declan said it. "I brought her ring back." Harper lifted her eyes to him. Declan looked at the grave, not at the box. "I kept it in my desk for 5 years. Told myself it was love. It was not." His voice was low and rough from a sleepless night. It was punishment. The wind moved through the trees. "I loved her," he said. "And then I used her death to give myself permission to become everything she feared I would become." Harper did not speak. Declan turned fully toward her. "I am not asking you to forgive any of that. I did not come here to forgive your past. Then why did you come?" Harper held the astronomy book tighter. "I left Bennett." "I heard." "Of course you did." A faint, tired smile moved across his mouth and disappeared. Harper stepped closer. "I did not leave him for you." Declan nodded once. "Good." The answer surprised her, even though it should not have. "I left him because I finally understood I was disappearing inside a life everyone else approved of." Declan's eyes stayed on hers. "And now I am scared." His face softened. "That is honest. I'm scared of you too." He accepted that without flinching. "You should be. I am also scared of wanting you." That reached him. For a moment, Declan looked away toward the moss-darkened trees as if the words had touched something he did not trust himself to hold. Harper took another step. "If we do this, you do not own me." His eyes returned to hers. "I know." "No," she said softly. I need you to hear it before you agree too quickly. You do not buy my time. You do not decide where I go, who I see, what I need, or what danger I can handle. You do not get to turn protection into a prettier kind of control." His jaw worked once. "You are right. I keep my apartment. Yes. I keep my work. Yes. I keep Riley even when she threatens you with pepper spray." A small breath left him. Almost a laugh. "Especially then. I keep my number." His expression changed. That was the one that mattered. Declan took a step toward her, then stopped before he crossed the distance without permission. "You keep every no you ever give me," he said. "And if I forget that, you leave." No explanation. No apology. Harper felt the words settle between them, not as romance, as structure, as a doorframe strong enough to hold the weight of a home. "And your world?" she asked. Declan glanced toward the grave. "I have already begun dismantling it." "That sounds too clean." "It is not clean. It is ugly, expensive, and dangerous. People are going to come after you. Yes. You might lose power." His eyes held hers. "Good." Harper studied him. "You mean that? I thought fear was respect for a long time. It was simpler that way. If men feared me, they obeyed. If they obeyed, no one I loved could be taken from me." His voice lowered. "Except fear did not save Lena. It did not save my parents. It did not even save me." Harper looked at the man before her, at the cold grave behind him, at the empty space where roses used to be. "And what do you want now?" Declan's gaze moved over her face. "Something I do not have to threaten anyone to keep." The words were not polished. They were barely steady. That made them feel true. Harper closed the last space between them. She placed the astronomy book against his chest. His hand rose to cover it, but he did not touch her fingers until she let them remain there. Her palm rested over his heart. It was racing. She looked up. "You are nervous, terrified. Of me, of wanting something clean with hands like mine." Harper held his gaze, then washed them. The sound he made was half laugh, half wound. She touched his face first. Declan closed his eyes for one brief second, as if the contact hurt because it did not. Then Harper kissed him. This kiss was not stolen from a contract. It did not belong to Valentine's Day, $5 million, Bennett's betrayal, or a room full of ghosts. It was quiet and chosen. His mouth met hers carefully at first, then, with a hunger, he held on a leash because restraint had become the language she trusted. His hand settled at her waist only after she leaned closer. The cemetery remained cold around them. The grass was wet. The sky was pale. Gage pretended to inspect the car. Milo stared into the distance with the exaggerated seriousness of a man trying not to ruin a sacred moment. When Harper pulled back, Declan kept his forehead near hers. "I am not good at gentle," he whispered. "You are learning. I am not good at losing. I am not something you win." His eyes opened. "No," he said, "you are not." A phone rang near the car. Gage answered, listened, and turned toward them with his face changed. Declan noticed at once. The softness left his posture, but not completely. Not the way it had in the library. This time he did not become someone else. He became a man, forced to choose which self walked forward. Gage approached. Mercer's men hit the Bay Street warehouse. Declan's eyes darkened. "How many?" "8 confirmed. Maybe more inside. They knew we pulled back." Milo came up behind him, phone in hand. "They are burning records, boss. If those files go, we lose the chain tying Mercer to the judges, the ports, the shell companies. Also, they took Luis." Declan went still. Harper looked from one man to another. "Who is Luis?" Milo answered, voice tight. "Night guard, 72. Brings empanadas every Friday." He was not supposed to be there. Declan's hand flexed. Old violence moved through him. Harper saw it. Not because he wanted to frighten anyone, but because it was part of him carved deep by fire and blood, and years of being the worst thing in every room before anyone else could try. Gage said, "We can be there in 12 minutes. Milo added, "I can call the East Crew." The words East Crew hung like a loaded gun. Declan looked toward Lena's grave, then at Harper. He did not ask her what to do. He did not make her his conscience. He did not put the weight of his choice into her hands and call it love. He looked at Gage. "Call Agent Bell." Gage blinked. "Federal." "Yes?" Milo lowered his phone. "That burns half our leverage." Declan's voice was calm. "Then let it burn. Boss, if Mercer talks first, he buries you too." Declan held Milo's gaze. "Then we give Bell everything before Mercer can shape the story. Judges, shell companies, port routes, payouts, all of it. Send the files from the secure drive." Gage stared at him. "All of it." Declan nodded. "No bodies, no private cleanup, no disappearing men in the river. We get Luis out, and we let the law carry what I should have trusted it to carry before I decided I was better than it." Milo swallowed. "The law failed you." Declan's eyes moved briefly to the bakery fire still living somewhere behind them. "Yes. And then I failed everyone else." Harper watched him. This was not softness. This was more dangerous than softness. This was surrendering the weapon that had made him powerful. Declan turned to her. "I need to go. I know. I do not know what happens after. I know that too. If federal agents take me in, do not follow me into that building out of loyalty." Harper's throat tightened. "Do not tell me what to do." A faint smile touched his mouth. "Right, I am learning." She stepped closer and straightened the collar of his coat, though it did not need straightening. "Bring Luis home." Declan's eyes warmed for 1 second. Then he turned and walked to the car. The ride to Bay Street was a storm without rain. Harper did not stay behind. Declan did not ask her to come, and he did not ask her to leave. She chose the back seat of the Cadillac, and he accepted the choice with one brief glance in the rearview mirror. Gage drove. Milo worked 3 phones at once. Declan sat beside Harper in the back, silent, his hand resting open on his knee, not reaching for a gun, not reaching for her. Just open. The warehouse district rose ahead in hard lines of brick steel and river fog. Smoke curled from one of the buildings near the docks. Sirens sounded in the distance, far but approaching. A black van sat crooked near the entrance, its rear doors open. Gage stopped the car 1 block away. Declan stepped out. Harper followed. He looked at her then. "Stay behind Gage." "That one sounds like advice, not control." "It is. Then I will consider it." Milo muttered, "I like her, but my blood pressure does not." Gunshots cracked from inside the warehouse. Harper flinched. Declan did not. But his eyes changed. Gage drew his weapon. Milo moved toward the side entrance with 2 of Declan's men, but Declan caught his arm. "No killing unless there is no other way." Milo stared at him, then nodded. Federal vehicles turned the corner, fast lights flashing blue and red against wet pavement. Men and women in tactical vests poured out. A woman in her 40s with silver threaded through her dark hair approached Declan like she had waited years for this moment. Rourke. Agent Bell. Her gaze cut to Harper, then back to him. "You better not be wasting my morning." Declan handed her a secure drive. "Everything." Bell looked at it. Suspicion crossed her face first. Then something like disbelief. What changed? Declan looked toward the smoke. "I got tired of ghosts." Agent Bell studied him 1 second longer, then gave orders. The next minutes shattered into sound. Agents moved. Doors were breached. Men shouted. Smoke thickened. A shot struck brick near the corner where Harper stood, and Gage pulled her behind a parked truck with 1 hard motion. "Considering advice would have been a nice moment," he said. Harper's heart pounded. "Noted." Inside the warehouse, Declan moved through smoke with Agent Bell's team, not as the king of the place, but as a man handing over the map to his own empire. He knew every corridor, every false wall, every hidden room. He led them to Mercer's men, to burning file boxes, to the back office where Luis was tied to a chair with blood on his temple and fury in his eyes. Luis glared when he saw Declan. "Took you long enough." Declan crouched and cut the rope. "I was at a cemetery." Luis snorted. "Everybody has hobbies." Even Agent Bell looked briefly amused. Mercer tried to run through the loading bay. Milo caught him. For 1 breath, Harper saw the old world return. Mercer on his knees. Milo's hand twisted in his collar. Declan walking toward him with a face carved from winter. Mercer spat blood onto the concrete. You think handing files to the feds makes you clean. Declan stopped in front of him. Number. Mercer laughed. You think she stays when she sees the rest? His eyes flicked to Harper. Declan did not look back at her. That mattered. He did not check whether the accusation had wounded him in her eyes. He did not ask her silently to save him from shame. He looked at Agent Bell. He is yours. Mercer's laugh vanished. Milo released him to the agents. Declan stepped away. Harper stood near the loading bay as Luis was helped outside. Smoke lifted toward the ceiling in torn gray sheets. Sirens washed the walls in blue and red. Declan looked around the warehouse at the files, the agents, the men being cuffed, the Empire beginning to bleed in public. He seemed older, lighter too. Agent Bell approached him. You know this does not buy you immunity. Declan nodded. I know. You may still answer for things. I know that too. Harper's chest tightened. Declan did not look afraid. Not because there was no danger, because he had finally stopped negotiating with truth. By nightfall, the story had broken across Savannah. Not all of it. Not the parts that mattered most, but enough. Federal raid at Bay Street warehouse. Port corruption investigation. Prominent business figures implicated. Declan Rourke cooperating with authorities. Bennett Shaw's family name appeared by Mourning, tied to shell companies' campaign donations and fraudulent property deals in Charleston. By noon, Bennett had vanished from his family's house. By dinner, his attorney said he was seeking privacy during a difficult time. Riley sent Harper the article with one message. I leave you alone for 2 days, and you accidentally start a federal investigation. Harper answered. It was not accidental. Riley replied. That is worse and hotter. Harper smiled for the first time that day. Declan was not arrested that night. He was questioned for 9 hours. Harper waited outside the federal building not because he asked her to, but because she wanted the choice to meet him when he came out. Gage brought coffee. Milo paced. Riley arrived with sandwiches and pepper spray because she said romance did not override personal safety. Near midnight, Declan stepped through the doors. He looked exhausted. His coat smelled faintly of smoke. There was a cut on one cheekbone. His eyes searched the steps and found Harper. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he came down to her. You waited, he said. I chose to. His face softened. That is becoming my favorite sentence. She touched the cut on his face gently. Are you free? For tonight. And tomorrow. His mouth curved without humor. Tomorrow I hire lawyers. Good thing you almost became one. He laughed, then quietly, and the sound loosened something around them. Harper stepped into his arms. He held her like a man who understood that holding was not keeping. His embrace was firm, warm, and careful, with space enough for her to breathe. Spring came slowly. Savannah warmed by degrees. Valentine roses disappeared from shop windows, replaced by Easter lilies, then summer peaches, then golden autumn wreaths. The city kept its secrets, but some secrets had names now. Men who once smiled at charity galas sat in courtrooms. Judges retired early. Port officials resigned. Mercer took a plea. Bennett Shaw's family fortune cracked open under the weight of documents Declan had surrendered. Declan did answer for things, not all in the ways people expected. The world was not clean enough for that. But he gave testimony, surrendered assets, closed routes, sold properties, and signed over buildings that once hid illegal business to organizations that kept people safe. Some nights he came home angry, some nights quiet. Some nights Harper found him in the kitchen at 2 a.m, making bread badly from his grandmother's recipe hands covered in flour jaw, tight with memories. She never called it healing. He never asked to be praised for doing what should have been done sooner. They learned each other slowly. Harper kept her apartment for 9 months. Declan never complained. She spent 3 nights a week at her place, 2 at his, sometimes none at all. When work at Willow House ran late, or when her heart needed silence, no one else was inside. He learned not to send a car unless she asked. She learned to say what frightened her before fear turned into distance. He learned to knock on open doors. She learned that not every knock was a demand. Riley remained suspicious on principle and loyal in practice. Gage became Harper's favorite person to call when Declan was being impossible, because Gage had the rare ability to say, "You are being impossible," and survive. Milo claimed he had been emotionally invested from the start and deserved credit which no one gave him. Marianne came slowly. The first Sunday she visited Harper's apartment, she brought soup and did not comment on the bare walls where wedding portraits might have hung. The second Sunday she asked about Willow House. The third, she saw Harper in a sleeveless blouse, pale patches visible along her arms, and her eyes filled with tears. Harper braced for correction. Marianne only said your father would have loved that color. It was not enough to erase years, but it was a beginning. 3 years later, Willow House no longer fit inside the old blue-shuttered building. The new center stood near the river, bright with glass brick and wide windows. Its name was carved above the entrance. The Lane Rourke Foundation for Women and Families. Harper had argued about the name for weeks. Declan said her name should come first because the work had always been hers. Harper said his name had bought the building. Declan said money was loud, and she was the reason it finally learned where to go. Riley said they were both unbearable, and signed the paperwork herself. On opening day, women filled the lobby with children, caseworkers, lawyers, volunteers, and survivors who stood taller than anyone expected. Maya arrived with Jonah, who was now old enough to wear a tiny suit, and complained that it itched. Maya hugged Harper hard. "You look happy," she whispered. Harper smiled. "I am." Jonah tugged at Declan's sleeve. "Are you still scary?" Declan looked down at him. "Sometimes." Jonah considered this. "Do you have snacks?" Milo appeared from nowhere and handed him a packet of crackers. "I am the snacks department," Gage muttered, unfortunately. The ribbon cutting happened under a clear sky. Harper gave a speech without hiding her hands. Declan stood in the back, not beside her, not in front of her, but where she could see him if she wanted to. When she finished, the applause rose loud enough to startle birds from the trees. That evening, after everyone left, Harper found Declan in one of the empty legal offices overlooking the river. He was looking at the view. She leaned against the doorway. "You disappeared. I was giving you your room." She walked in. "You are allowed inside rooms I choose to share." He turned. His hair had a little more silver at the temples now. The cutthroat elegance remained, but the loneliness no longer owned his face. Harper crossed to him and placed his hand over her stomach. His expression changed at once. Stillness, then wonder. Again he whispered. She nodded. He sank to his knees before her. Not dramatically, not like a man making a vow for an audience, but like his legs had simply forgotten what strength was. Harper laughed softly, tears in her eyes. "You did this the first time, too. I was not prepared then either. You run legal strategy against federal prosecutors without blinking. That is paperwork. This is a person." She touched his hair. Inside, her life was still small and secret. Outside, the river moved gold under the evening sun. Valentine's Day came mild that year. No storm, no cemetery rain, no black card on a velvet table. Just warm air candlelight and the smell of bread burning in the kitchen, because Declan still refused to admit his grandmother's recipe had defeated him. Their daughter, Lena Rose Rourke, sat at the table in a red sweater, banging a spoon against her bowl and singing a song Marianne had taught her badly. Harper stood barefoot near the counter, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. Declan pulled a tray from the oven. Smoke followed. Harper raised an eyebrow. "Should I call the fire department or your grandmother?" Declan looked at the bread with deep offense. "It is rustic. It is charcoal." Lena Rose clapped, "Charco." Milo, seated at the kitchen island, with a paper heart taped to his jacket by Lena Rose, pointed at the child. "She gets it." Gage entered carrying a box from the bakery Arthur had recommended. Backup bread. Declan glared. "Traitor." Gage set the box down. "Survivor." The doorbell rang. Riley arrived with flowers, Marianne with soup, and Arthur with an astronomy book for Lena Rose that had more pictures than words. The house filled with voices. Laughter moved through rooms that once smelled only of white roses and grief. Later, when the guests had gone, and Lena Rose had fallen asleep with one hand tangled in Declan's shirt, Harper stepped onto the balcony. Savannah glowed below them. The river caught the moonlight. Carriages moved through the streets. Somewhere, a couple laughed under a striped awning. Valentine's Day had returned to the city dressed in red and gold, but it no longer felt like a threat. Declan came out behind her carrying one white rose. Only one. Harper looked at it. For Lena. He shook his head. For you. She took it. You know I am not a ghost. His mouth softened. I know. And you are not paying me $5 million for tonight. I could not afford your current rate. She laughed. He stepped beside her, not behind her, and rested his hands on the balcony rail. For a while, they watched the city. Harper touched the star pendant at her throat. She still wore it. Not every day, but often enough that it had become less a relic and more a root. My father used to say quiet stars still mattered, she said. Declan looked up at the sky. Do you believe him? Harper leaned into his side. I do now. Inside, Lena Rose stirred and called sleepily Daddy. Declan turned immediately. Harper caught his hand before he went in. He looked back. The man she had met in a private club would have mistaken urgency for devotion, fear for love, possession for safety. The man before her still carried darkness. It lived in him like old smoke in brick, but he no longer worshipped it. Harper lifted his hand and kissed his knuckles. Go on, Mafia King. He gave her a look. I retired that title. Tell that to Milo. Milo is on thin ice. Milo has been on thin ice for 3 years. And yet he persists. Lena Rose called again. Declan went inside. Harper stayed on the balcony for one more breath, holding the single white rose, watching the stars come out over Savannah. Not loud, not perfect, still there,